Hello everyone and welcome to another video third take. And here I have like an interesting take I think I'm gonna do regarding words. Yesterday I was with a buddy of mine and we're talking about the word about fuck. And he was telling me that I was using a lot about it when we're talking we're eating in a place. And he was telling me like, oh, that is a like a profanity word. If you're gonna use it, I kind of like he was just trying to make an argument of how like I was using it. And I told him like, hey, like, I use the word and I use it in a adult setting, but more so, through the conversation, kind of like what really got me interesting. I think I had this conversation with other people as well, and I had it with my mom. Is that words really don't hold any power? Like we as people give it power to the words. So, for example, the word fuck, fuck, you know, it could be used as a profanity word, but it could be used as an adjective. So, for example, it adds more intonation. When you say so, oh, this is awesome versus like, oh, this is fucking awesome. The word fucking adding to the awesome, in that portion, you're adding more intonation over just like, yeah, it was like adding more excitement, towards the word. So that's where like context really matters, and that was the conversation I was trying to have with him where he was just like, oh, you're sending their kids around. I'm like, okay, if their kids around in an adult setting, that is one thing. However, if someone is saying this, the word fuck, is in it in a setting that is meant for kids, for sure I have a problem with it. So, I do have a problem like if it's at school, if it's like a Chuck and Cheese, kind of like that. That is kid settings, with that. But when we were looking at it, it was more like everything was like in adult settings. There were no kids around, nothing like that. And again, if you bring kids into an adult setting, you're understanding that like these are the possible consequences that could happen, that you could may hear a word that you may not like. Like if you're in an establishment that sells alcohol, that is an environment for adults, because consequences can happen from the consumption of alcohol that could be detrimental, to anyone in any establishment, if things go too far. So, I think it's important that context really matter. And I think this is where like I really want to talk about words in a sense, because kind of the day and age, a lot of people become kind of like a bit more like sensitive with the uses of words. And I think that we kind of like have to move a little bit away from this and really understand that words are just a combination of symbols that produce a phonetic sound. That's all the words are. Like words have no power unless we give them power. When I was talking about power in another video, I say that power has to be exercised. So a word by itself has no power. You know, it has to be exercised. So that's where like for me, like I'm more open with concepts like this, and using like words like fucking other words like that. And really, I think like fuck has really turned into a word that it could mean anything depending on the context in which you're using the word. It could be a word of profanity, or it could be used, like I said, like an adjective, or whatever it could be, like, or like a noun, like an action, as well. So it's context matters. Like that's why like it's important that context matters, and more so than context, like how do we allow these words to give power to us? If you hear like someone says like fuck, or like you hear cunt and stuff like that, and that really like bothers you to your core, then you're allowing just symbols that compose in phonetic sound that have no power at all, and by themselves they do not have power. You're allowing them to have power over you. And I think that is the important thing. Like, and again, the same thing can be said about racial slurs or anything, any other concepts like that. Is that you need to understand that you allow that word to give power. You allow that word to hurt you. You're giving that word power over you. So that's where like I've kind of like, for example, I'm Puerto Rican, and people look at me like, oh yeah, there's like a Latino, most likely will think I'm Mexican. I'm sure there's some racists that, oh, look at this wetback. I'm sure uh, someone may call me that. Do I care about it? No, because I'm not allowing that word to have power over me. It has no meaning, has no power over me, and I'm not gonna allow that to have power over me. I could live thinking, like, oh, I'm a victim in a microaggression of this, but this is just at the end of the day, when someone calls me a racial slur, it has no pragmatic effect in my life. what power does someone calling me this word actually holds over me unless I let this take power over me? I think that is the important thing, is that are we actually going to allow um words just to have power over us? Just don't give it power to them. You know, Again, and then there's some words that do have power because in society and other stuff we give power to them. So for example, any violent non-consensual sexual act, of course, the act by itself is the thing that we condemn, that we as a society condemn. However, when someone is accused, you know it could be correctly or incorrectly. I'm not saying one way or the other. However, when someone is being called a perpetrator of a certain type of you know non-consensual sexual act, then us as a society, we give power to that. We give power to that word. That word has a meaning because we as society have decided that this is kind of like the meaning that it has. But the word by itself has no power. We as a society exercise the power of someone being branded a certain label. You know, it's the same thing. Like for example, like someone could have been a former alcoholic, right? But if we keep telling that person that they're a former alcoholic, we're exercising that power over them. They have two options. They either allow that to take power of them or not. So they're exercising their power of resistance in a way, and you're exercising your power of you know labeling in a sense. It is all, the word by itself has no meaning. It's the context and the power that is being exercised in the word that matters. That is what matters at the end of the day. you know are we going to allow some words to hold power over us? And because the more that we react to these words and the more power that we give to them, the more they're going to be used, because they're going to get a reaction. People want a reaction. If you give them a reaction, if you give them what they want, you're giving power to a word that has nothing, has no power unless we allow it, unless we give it power. You know, so, and this is funny, because I talked to this about my mom. Um, I don't know when, but in the past I talked to this about this, and we're talking. And sometimes we talk, she tells me like, "Oh no, like you're the one who told me that powers in itself they don't mean anything. They have no power." And I'm like, "Yep, yeah, it's true. Like that is correct." It's like it's us as a society, like how we decide to have powers over them or not. You know, may some of them think maybe correctly, yeah. So for example, men or women, whoever it is, if you're called a hoe, you have two options: either you let that have power over you, or you do not. Now, could it be correctly? Yes or no? Doesn't matter if it's people are using it as an attack or not. Like you need to understand is how do you react to that? Because you're the masters of your emotions. You're the master of your mental state. You are the one who allows something to have power over you or not. And I'm talking, I'm just talking about words in this sense. Right? Are you going to let just mere words, have such a strong hold in your mental psyche and to be so disrupted to your day? Could it potentially suck? Yeah, it sucks. You're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, this sucks, but and I'm gonna keep dwelling in it, or I'm just gonna, no. And I think that's kind of like what I want to bring more into it, is that words by itself they have no power, none whatsoever, unless we give them power, unless we allow them to exercise power over us or not. It's that simple. So with me, I really don't care if you're in an adult setting and someone is using the word fuck or maybe cursing like a sailor in an open space area. You have the option that you can move somewhere else or you can stay there. Like for example, like when I was there, we were sitting there, like we are talking about it, and like honestly, I don't remember using the word, saying fuck that many times. Yeah, I said it, but more as an adjective or anything like that. And I do it when I feel comfortable with someone, with someone that is like a friend of mine or stuff like that. I wouldn't do it with like a dinner again, context matters, so that's where like I'm more contextual. Is okay, what is the context and the environment of where the situation happens, because I think that as I have more information around me, I have a better gauge of it. And honestly, this is my opinion. You can disagree with me, you may like it or not. Look, I personally do not care. It is This is just my 2 cents. It's just my take of what I think, like what I think about the word fuck, or what I think about words in general, and how we can kind of change a different perspective and viewpoint of like how we interact with words and how we allow words to really hold power over us or not. How we allow just mere symbols and just like just mere symbols that represent a phonetic sound have so much hold over our lives and our psyche. That for me is the bigger issue. You know. So if you really like this content, you like video like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.